te osioti dunila dousti natane. Hello, Yonda Rasa. Welcome to another edition of Black Bear Medicine Bag. One second, y'all. It's good to see everybody. It's been about a week, almost 2 weeks, and I'm ready for another show. So let's start up. Let's just jump into the trending topic. You're Not an Indian documentary. You're Not an Indian documentary exposes Native American disenrollment. By Caterberg, January 25. A new film is coming out later this year. You're No Indian takes a hard look at growing practices of Native American disenrollment, a process where tribes removed individuals members from their membership role. Directed by Ryan Flynn, the documentary dives into how this trend has impacted thousands of people, fractured communities, and stirred up debates about identity and sovereignty. This isn't just an indigenous issue, it's a human issue. And while I can't fully understand the experience of disenrollment, my goal is to amplify the voices of those impacted and spark meaningful conversation. Over the past 15 years, more than 11,000 people from 80 tribes have been disenrolled under continuous circumstances. For those effects, losing tribal membership means losing access to health care, housing, education, voting rights, and financial benefits tied to gaming revenues. Never miss Indian country's biggest stories and breaking news. Oh, my bad, y'all. Sorry about that. I usually put that in the comments so I could be able to read it. And sometimes you get extra things when you do that. That's Indian country news. I'll post that on the Black Bear Medicine Bags page so you guys could read the full story. What do I know about disenrollment? Well, I heard about in Oklahoma how they were disenrolling certain people that they suspected weren't from the real Cherokee people, Cherokee by blood. And this debate has hit every Native nation. You guys got to understand, in the Indian healthcare system, there is limited amount of money that the federal government gives. And previously I talked about that. It's less than what they give for federal prisoners. Federal prisoners get more money than what they do. So also you got to deal with, they said, the revenue, right? When they gaming and on the casino, the more people that they have on the tribal rolls, the more money has to go out to everybody to be spread around. But the less people that you got on your tribal rolls, and if you have a gaming situation on your reservation, then you will be able to make more money the less people that you have. And some of these tribes may be doing exactly that. Like the people may be there for 5 or 6 generations, and now all of a sudden they'll be like, well, let's get some of these people off. And the number one way that they could get some of these people off, this is within the tribe. These are own tribal members. They'll start playing the blood quantum game. Okay, say like the lowest blood quantum is 1/16. They may move the bar back to 1/4 or 1/8 to keep people out. And now, even though people being that you got the DNA, you got family ties, you've been doing this since you was a kid, all of a sudden, if you got 1/16 or anything under 1/4, they could be like, no. And when they move the bar back. This all goes back to when the colonial people were doing blood quantum, was really how much of a human being, how much right do you have access to the English world? This was not a thing started by indigenous people. This was an ideal practice started by colonials, the Spanish, the French, predominantly the English, and it plays into our society today. That's why it's so important to know where you come from, regardless, and practice the language or the culture, regardless of blood quantum, regardless of enrollment. Know where your ancestors come from, regardless, because nobody can tell you who you are, a card or not. Yeah, the blood quantum may protect certain things, right? Tribe enrollment may, give you sovereignty and gave you status, right, as an individual. But outside of that, knowing who you are and your people is very important. 1 second, y'all. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry about that, audience. I had to deal with the distraction. You guys know how that is when you guys got kids. Now, moving forward, tribal disenrollment is a very hurtful thing because now all of your family, your future family is cut off. Give a perfect example. One of the mothers of most of my children, she's 1/16th Cherokee or 1/32nd Eastern Band Cherokee, but she's trying to find more ancestors so she could prove that, hey, she has enough to enroll. But after her, our kids won't be able to enroll, basically. Now my other daughter, her mother is 3/4, so my daughter is half, so she's good to the next generation. What that does is that forces Native people to find somebody from that tribe, maybe a distant relative. I've heard about that, and they have to keep that going sometimes. But nobody's really marrying their cousin like that. But I've heard different jokes that I ain't even gonna really get into that. But that kind of pushes a lot of people to do that because blood quantum actually is another form of this extinction, and people don't realize that. Some native tribes like out west, I ain't gonna name no nations, I heard of, said it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing if y'all believe, hey, we got to marry from this tribe, but what if you can't find eligible couples, and now your family's disenrolled because they didn't marry another native that's from the same nation that carries that blood quantum. Now they disenrolled. Or maybe it happened a long time ago and you want to reconnect to that nation, but you can't reconnect to the nation and enroll because you have less blood quantum to be enrolled. So when a lot of native nations get money, it starts to get funny. The people at the top get everything, the people at the bottom don't. I like looking at Canadian native videos that talk about the band office, how they sit around and do nothing. Or under the Navajo Nation, they say you got to be a Begay to get a job because the Begays are the biggest and powerful. I guess they're in the native tribal government. I don't know how true that is, but that's or Yazi. That's another common name in Navajo. The name is Yazi. I don't know. I don't live on the rest, but just hear different stuff from different native jokes and stuff like that and see online. So I'll go from there. Maybe I can ask some of the Ned people about that situation or some of the other native nations, how's it really work. We bring them on the show and we could talk about disenrollment and enrollment, blood quantum again. All right. Now today's topic we will be talking about is something out of nothing, Black indigenous towns in Oklahoma, how it all got started. All right, let's take you all the way back to the Civil War, after the Civil War, because of the Civil War. I'm going to say that a lot of native nations in Oklahoma in particular sided with the Confederacy. Most of them did, and they lost a lot of land. because they did. And a lot of the land was given to the Plains tribes, the Cheyenne and the Arapaho. Other native nations from the eastern woodlands, like the Lenape and the Shawnee, got the remainder of the divided land after all the land was divided up among the 5 civilized tribes. That's a lot of the Constitution and the treaties that were signed earlier were null and void because they did side with the South. And another thing they had to give up was their enslaved Black folks, or enslaved Africans. Depends on where you at in that diaspora, what you want to consider yourself, and depends on what your ancestry traces you back to. Let's just keep it real. If you got any records proving that by the native nations, because a lot of the chiefs among the 5 civilized tribes had slaves. That was just a common practice. That was one of the things that kept them alive, was because they adopted European ways of owning slaves and farming and going to school and universities and learning. Now, moving forward, the United States government after 1865 told the native nations, hey, if you want to get in good grace and for us to keep some of the treaty, you guys have to get rid of your slaves. So in 1866, the treaty was signed, and all the native nations agreed to give all of their former slaves rights as far as being a citizen in their nation, and they also had to give them some land, which they did. But there were a few native nations, like on the like the Loyal Creeks, and about 1,100 citizens were compensated for their property loss when the United States was going back in the South and giving out land and stuff in payment. And from that 1,100, 300 were African Creeks or Black Creeks, and 60 were soldiers from the Indian Home Guard. And we covered that topic about the Indian Home Guard. Moving forward, well, I just realized that we didn't cover any black bear medicine herbs, and we'll get into that once we cover this discussion. We did a little backwards, but that's okay. We could make up for that. Well, a lot of in the native nations, they lived separate from the other native people, so they got their own towns. They started forming a lot of their own towns, and education was very important for them. That was the number one thing, because a lot of them that were being held in slavery, they don't only learn to read the Bible. That was it, nothing more. So in the Creek Nation was one of the first, and the Cherokee Nation too, to have schools. And one of the most notable schools was called Tuscaloosa among the Choctaw Freemen, as that was defined during that time when they had citizenship among the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. Another one was called Tallahassee among the Creek Nation Freemen. And another one in the Choctaw was called Oak Hill Academy, where they would learn how to read and whatnot to survive. And then also soldiers could read. Now, as far as in the Chickasaw Nation, that was the worst one. Even to this day, they're still fighting for that. In the Cherokee Nation, they got 100%. But some of the other nations, they are still fighting for 100%. Moving forward, we're going to talk about how there were over 50 black towns that were made, and 27 were made Well, there was actually 60, but by 1890, 27 was started in full function. I'm going to read some of the black towns that were made. It was Bowley, Tallahassee, Funtonville, Brookville, Clearview, Rentsville, Garrison, Langstop, Lima, Redbird, Rentville, Summit, Taft, Tatum, Burnham. And these all black towns were ran as any other town. They had freedom. You know, a lot of times they might be harassed, but they stuck together and they pushed it through. I think there's like 14 towns in Oklahoma still around, and some of them are in the Choctaw and the Chickasaw Nation, and maybe one is in the Cherokee Nation. I have to look that up and get back to you guys about those black towns. That was Tulsa. Now, Tulsa was an interesting thing. It was a mixture of Native, white, and black, and or African American, quote unquote. But we know that's a made-up term that didn't exist after Jesse Jackson. The funny thing about Jesse Jackson, he's an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. Right. Interesting. So moving forward, one part, I think it was like Greenville, whatever, was all black area, very lucrative and very economic moving forward. And they wanted that. You know, so they used a situation where they said a black man ran up to a white woman and hit her in the face and hung her. And so they took him into custody. And so the people on from the black side of Tulsa decided to protect the young man. They went down to the courthouse, but a big mob was coming. But these weren't just no average black men. These were former Marines, former Army, former Navy. So they had skill sets, and no matter what, they were holding back the white folks from destroying and desecrating that building until they dropped that bomb on them. Yes, they dropped the bomb from the air and killed up everybody. And they disrespectfully buried everybody in Tulsa, Oklahoma in a mass grave. And you can find more about this situation on Tubi. There's actually a documentary on Tubi. Is it Tubi? No, it may be a Hulu. You know, that's what it is. It's like Tulsa Massacre, basically. But this didn't just happen in Oklahoma. No matter where black folks, black indigenous folks were very economically rich, they always want to tear it up and then tell you to put your bootstraps up. I want to tell America, don't cut our boots once we have them strapped up. Pay back what you owe, America. That's what you need to do to keep it real. You could pay everybody else, but you can't pay the black and you can't pay the indigenous people of Turtle Island for everything that you did to them. And no, the Civil War is not enough for reparation for black indigenous people of Turtle Island. It's not enough. Now, what can we learn from this? We can learn, even though now and then we are in economic turmoil as a group, we could come together. We could start little businesses online. And as a whole collective, we could do business with each other. So we could start an international online Black Wall Street. I think that is one of the things we could do. We could start a think tank and sit around and figure out our solutions and make ourselves great again, you know. All right. Okay. So today I got 2 herbs that I will be pulling out from the Black Bear medicine bag. And you can also find these herbs online. these medicinal herbs. Give me 1 second so I can find that. While I look for that information, I'm going to play something in the background. Give me a minute to look for that. All right. I will be back with y'all in a moment. Enjoy the music, everybody. It's by Tony Duncan. 1 second so I get it queued up.
Have you been suffering from the after effects of a work injury? The good news is you're still entitled to a 5 or 6-figure settlement if it happened within the past.
All right, that was Mother Earth by Tony Duncan. Now I have some more black bear herbal remedies that you could use. The medicine will be red bud. It was used for whooping cough, dysentery. It is also an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. Um, it is also used as an extract, stomach for diarrhea, menstruation issues, diabetes, meningitis, pain, chronic inflammation, disease, depression, stress, seizures, and it's anti-aging. So some of you guys who's worrying about aging, you guys might want to try some red bud. Look for it. All right. Also, another herb that I will be pulling out from the Black Bear medicine bag tonight is called ironwood. The barks and leaves are used for many purposes. It's an astringent. The bark is also can help with bleeding. The bark is used for a blood to help with blood toxins. It also can be used as a hemostat. I guess is to stop bleeding, basically. Also, if you have sore muscles, you could use this herb ironwood. It's also used for toothache with the pain. You could also use it for a fever and for gastrointestinal disorder, pain, and inflammation. One thing I want to add is that we need to come together as indigenous people in the United States, no matter if you're on the reservation, if you're in the hood, or if you're in the city, or off the res. We need to understand we look very different from what the ancestors looked like 50, 100, 250. It's not so much about your color as it's your family connection, your location, the language. Even if you feel like you're original, you can learn something from somebody else. Be humble and not try to hurt other people, because that wasn't the way of the ancestors of any native nation. Don't get me wrong, we feud, but we figured out how to survive and interact and respect. each other's thought processes, our different views. We respect it. Hey, over there, that's Lakota territory. You got to go talk to them or trade or something before you go over there. Hey, that's Hickory territory. Hey, that's the Ned territory. Hey, over there, that's in there. That's Apache territory. We understood that. Nowadays, it's about me, myself, and I. We have become so colonial and less indigenous. We need to get back to the old way before it's too late. As Tecumseh said, the white man could break us up if we're several sticks apart. But if we are united together, it is hard. It's harder to break us apart. We're very strong. Let's think about unity and understand. Sit down and ask an individual, why do you think this way? Why are you this way? Not with anger, but an open heart and an open mind of understanding. And use some common understanding, common agreement. All right, that's all I have for you on the Blackbird Medicine Bag Show. I will put the trending topic story on the Black Bear Medicine Bag page. You guys have a good night, good health. Until next time, until we meet again. I'm signing off. This is C. Walker, aka Black Bear Medicine Bag. Have a good night.